Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Almost Ahead of the Curve. So named because we are not ahead of the curve, but we're almost there. I'm Arlaria. I am a hunter for the guild Bear Retirement Home, currently 3 out of 13 mythic or so. And I shoot things, and with me is...
I'm Lotuspetals. I am a Brewmaster Monk. I raid with Twisted Legion on Sargeras. We're currently sitting right about 7 of 13 heroic in Hellfire. I just like to smash kegs. That's pretty much all I do. And spam guard, of course.
Yeah, and your guys' guild, just reforming, right?
Yeah, we actually started out about 2 months ago. A bunch of us that have known each other for a pretty decent amount of time decided that, you know what, we think we could run a guild better than a lot of the places we were before, and we think we're doing a pretty good job. 2 months in, we're sitting there in a pretty stable roster, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, except for your tank issue, but...
Well, that Brewmaster tank can solo tank a lot, right? Yeah, maybe on normal, but yeah, we're definitely feeling the crunch now. We, definitely looking for another tank, who can actually assume the role of OT or MT, or I don't even care. I'll stand there and spam Expel Harm while they main tank. I don't care anymore.
Just use it on the... Can you Expel Harm other tanks? I don't think you can you? It's not an actual...
There is. There's a glyph for that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it doesn't do anywhere near as much, but hey, I can do it if I put that glyph in there.
You could be an off tank and an off healer.
Oh, don't get me started.
So, this is the first episode of our little thing. It's currently planned to just be like a general rating and whatever we feel like talking about. I think this time we're just going to mostly be talking about rating, because it's towards the end of the expansion. We're in the last tier, and yeah, so speaking of the last tier, how are you feeling about the Hellfire Citadel?
Oh, I like Hellfire. I wasn't sure if I'd like being in a dark place after being in, some destroyed ruins, followed by a dark, fiery place, but, a dark Fellfire place, pretty cool. I'm enjoying the bosses. There's a couple that are exceedingly boring to tank, but,
yeah.
Most of them, I actually have something to do. A couple, I actually have a real sense of impending death if people don't do things right, and the personal accountability is making it a very interesting tier.
Yeah, it's one of the most stressful, too, if you have people who are... Yeah. No, I know some of the fights, as a DPS, I'm not... I've done LFR, I haven't even done normal on my tank yet. Oh man, they're frustrating.
LFRs are frustrating?
Yeah, it's weird. Not getting healed for 20 seconds straight as the main tank, it's really annoying.
Well, to be fair, you take less damage in there than you do in a normal heroic, actually. That's
really?
A true statement. Yes, it's very interesting. I watch a lot of Preach on YouTube, and he was talking about that in one of his videos. It made me laugh, and then I actually did one, and I said, wow, he wasn't wrong.
That is... I don't know how I feel about that.
It's interesting. It makes things... it makes me question why tanks never die in LFR.
So, going through all the... you've seen all 13 bosses, I've seen all 13 bosses. You have any that really stand out in either negative or positive ways?
Well, sure. I'm going to start with a good one, then I'll give you a bad one, then I'll give you another good one. Positive sandwich, right?
Yeah.
So, most fun boss I had, and a lot of people are going to say, what the hell is wrong with you? I actually like the Fell Reaver, or the Iron Reaver, whatever her name is, simply because I have so much to do as a tank. I'm constantly shifting around, I'm constantly moving, I'm not bored, I have stuff to do. There is definitely a very, very annoying part of that fight, which is, for whatever reason, that barrage, it just seems to step back so far before it does it.
Yeah.
And if you're not quick enough to reposition it, your DPS just seem to die because they don't know how to not look at ranges. It can be interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of the same as a DPS, too, for that stupid step back. Trust me, it's just as frustrating for us.
Well, yeah, you're standing as far back as you can, for the most part, as marks, right?
Not on Mythic, actually, surprisingly. We spread in a circle around it, and we try and stay really close so everyone's in healing range.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Even still, I hate that boss because of the range issues.
Yeah, it likes to back out of range of all kinds of things, and sometimes it'll just shift just enough back that if the melee don't catch the range quick enough, they can get hit by the blast whenever we get artilleried, and that's never fun. But all in all, it's a very fun boss to do, just because there is, it's a single boss that's making us all pay attention.
Yeah.
So I very much like it in that aspect.
I don't mind the fight. It's an interesting fight. My biggest complaint is the blitz comes up right when my Mirror of the Blade Master is up. Every time. And out of reflex, I hit that button and then she blitz away. Every time.
I do believe the saying is you lack discipline.
I'm also terrible, so...
Oh, well, that's true,
yeah.
Yes. Let's see. So, negative, the negative boss. One boss that I'm just like, why is this here? Council, actually. Council on normal and heroic. Whenever you told me that you thought that Council was easier on heroic than normal, I thought you were just teasing me, but
no.
You were 100% correct. That fight on normal, we wiped on, I think, twice before we got it. Granted, none of us had ever seen the fight before, and we literally just said, let's YOLO pull this and see what happens. We did that on normal. We wiped twice, and then we got it. On heroic, we walked in with people that had never been in the raid before. None of the mechanics were messed up. No one died to anything stupid, and we one-shotted it. It was really just that easy. The damage didn't seem to scale up much. It honestly just felt like a loot pinata, which, granted, you get some really good trinkets off that boss, so maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. I love my mirror.
I very much enjoy shifting just out of the mirror whenever someone's really, really close to beating me on DPS.
Yeah, and I enjoy wishing for your death.
Oh, well, of course you do. Yeah. But I can't die. I'm a Brewmaster Monk.
Yeah.
Spam guard.
I know our tank, Sunnier, on that fight, actually was saying whenever she does it, 'cause she's on Dia, she pretty much just gets in position, gets threat, and then tabs out to YouTube through the whole fight.
She pretty much can. Up until you get to the point where, she's doing the, little enrage thing she does for a couple of seconds where she smacks really hard. I don't even know what the ability's called because I don't tank her. I tank Blood Boil and Blade Master.
I don't know what it's called either. Shadow Visage or something?
Yeah, Dark something, Shadow, whatever. I don't know. She's boring anyway.
She's easy.
Yeah, they've, hotfixed her a million times now.
Oh, that's right. Oh, man, poor Dia. I don't even know if they are nerfs or buffs at this point.
I have no idea. I don't know how to do the math on that at all, and I look at it and I go, So are you better or worse? You know what? It doesn't matter. You fall over dead either way.
Yeah.
So
I will note that Mythic actually feels like a fight, which is shocking because Heroic, it doesn't. Heroic, there's the only mechanic that matters is, I guess, keeping them separated and reap.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I guess you have to sometimes sidestep from the Shadow things. We don't really have to. They only hit for 100k.
Yeah, they really don't hit for anything. If you're a tank, you're going to have, either Priest Absorbs or Hots on you. You can literally just stand there and, like you said, send your tabs out, apparently. So.
Yeah. But,
I can see why that would happen.
It's the Mythic version. Like I said, it actually feels... It's still not that hard, but it's at least fun, which is better than you can say for normal Heroic.
Yeah, and then definitely you should feel that in Mythic because Mythic's supposed to be, supposed to be the ultimate challenge in raiding. If you want to get all, all gung ho about it. That's really what it's supposed to be, and I can definitely see that with some of the fights. Good lord, Mythic Archimond looks like something that just absolutely petrifies me, but that's definitely another topic to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, the third boss, because I said I was going to give you a real positive at the end here.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite boss in that instance, period, just end of story, is Manaroth. And the reason for Manaroth is I feel like a goddamn superhero when we get to Phase 4, when he's doing the where you have to split the damage as tanks. And,
Yeah.
And it's just crazy, and you got everything going on. I've solo tanked Phase 4, from the start of Phase 4 to dead. I don't know how many times now, because the random off tanks we have that we've been pugging, or grabbing someone's ult to cover it for the night.
Mm-hmm.
They just end up dead because they just don't have the gear, or they don't know the fight well enough.
Or they don't taunt off at the right time, or you don't taunt off the right time on purpose.
Hey, I can't make mistakes. Remember that. No, I definitely make mistakes. But the most fun there is just watching these massive blows come in and just going, okay, how do I survive? Yeah, I survived. All right, we got this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a superhero on that fight, and there's so much going on, so much to do, so much to watch. So many things to manage as a brewmaster with active mitigation that you have to have active. It just makes it incredibly fun, even if it is, a fairly simplistic fight once you get it.
Yeah.
But while you're learning it, there's just a lot of plates to spin, and it can get pretty crazy.
I will say, learning it was a really cool fight. Now that we've learned it, it is one of the most boring fights I've ever done. I stand in front of a pillar, and I barrage every once in a while, and I kill some infernals.
Oh.
And then I shoot the boss. There's not much to it until Phase 4, and even then, we have the DPS now, the Phase 4, we get one fear. We get a Shadow Force sometimes, if we're being slow.
Wait, you're talking on Heroic, right? That's what you said?
Yeah, Heroic. I haven't been there on Mythic yet.
Yeah, well, that's right, we hasn't gotten there.
We went back and did normal when we were clearing Archimond one week, before we actually got the Heroic Archimond, and it was hilarious. Because we actually killed him before the first Shadow Force.
What?
Well, Shadow Force in Phase 4, I should say.
Jeez.
Yeah, he is... the difference between normal and heroic isn't that big, so... The only difference really is health and damage.
Well, yeah, the simple scaling between difficulties, yeah.
Yeah, I know, we actually had an issue where, for some reason the Massive Blast was making Sunnier crash. So Ari actually tanked, I think it was 5 or 6 Massive Blasts in a row. Just back to back to back.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great to watch.
I'm sure his health yo-yoed like crazy.
I think he had over 1 million health for that, though. And that was before the bear nerfs.
Wow, that's a lot of health.
Yeah, yeah.
I honestly don't know if I could keep up with that. Jeez.
Well, he did eventually die. And
of course.
the best part is when we were still learning it, every once in a while they changed what counts as mitigation on the fight.
Right.
So Barkskin was working for a while, and they got rid of that. And that night we just kept seeing him just fly across the map and die.
Mm-hmm.
Just over and over. It was good times.
Yeah, we had that issue too. We tried tanking that with a Death Knight tank. And whenever you can't charge or teleport back in, it makes it very, very interesting, because if you have those abilities, you can actually just face him out of the raid.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually give your raid way more room, and it just makes it a lot easier on the ranged. At least from what we've been doing.
Oh, do you guys do the pillar strip?
Sort of. We just have him right there at the pillar the whole time, then we just kind of turn to the left. We just have him facing out. So if we got punted and missed our thing, we'd die because we'd go flying off the platform in Phase 4. But
yeah, we just have him to where his tail is basically reaching the platform. Or not the platform, the pillar.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's facing the long way, and we just have everyone behind him.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's pretty much how we do it too. We have it sitting where he's in front of the pillar, his tail is right there, basically at it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think we're tanking him we ourselves are about at the middle. So it makes it really fun, especially whenever, I actually will typically get hit, wait about a second or two, and then I'll drop back in with teleport.
Mm-hmm.
Or ascendance. I think it's ascendance. Transcendence. I'm sorry, transcendence.
I don't know monk things.
Ascendance is shaman, and that would be ridiculous if I had that plus the legendary ring. That would be crazy.
Oh man, those legendary rings are so good. So from specifically a marksman hunter, my list is a little different for my favorite fights. for instance, I think my number one fight, just from a I'm trying to do good DPS standpoint, is probably Valari right now. Even without the last phase where you get massive damage buffs, it is just really nice getting permanent Chimera shot cleave. Just every time you shoot it, cleave.
Yeah, I have a wonderful little marksman hunter. It's about 630. You know, it's got a lot of gear, and yeah, those chimera shots hit pretty hard on her. So I can only imagine what having the gear you have would do for that.
Well, I run lone wolf. For a little bit, I was the only hunter going lone wolf in our group. The other two were going focusing shot because, mathy stuff. But no, like if I get a 2-shot chimera shot, it hits upwards to like 300k total.
Wowza! Yeah, I think mine capped out at about 100k, so you might have a little bit on my hunter.
Well, I mean, I think I have almost 100 item levels over, so...
Yeah, you know, you might be right on that, too. At least we didn't get Miss Pandaria crazy stat changes between first tier and last tier. Oh, my goodness.
It's pretty close. I mean, it's not that close, but we've only had 2 tiers, so that helps, too.
I guess it would. So that's your... Like, that's like your favorite fight is Valhari?
Yeah, apparently, no tank in the world likes that fight, though, so...
Well, no, definitely not, because whenever she does anything, she, you know, like, you shift to the left, 20 yards to the right. Shift to the right, 50 yards to the left. You know, she's more temperamental than every ex-girlfriend I've ever had. She's just not fun to be around, you know? I would totally have no separation anxiety whatsoever with Tyrant Valhari, just literally zero.
I actually did that on LFR, that fight. Other than the fact that I died 4 times and got battle res each time. Again, no heals. I don't know.
Huh.
But
Man,
other than that...
You're like the best tank ever. You're doing monk tank too, right?
I have monk and death knight.
Oh, okay.
But I was doing death knight in there.
Ah.
So, I didn't care about the movement, but at the same time, I didn't try to position her at all, because it's LFR.
Right, yeah.
And no one cares about positioning in LFR. And also, I was getting annoyed by dying constantly. So...
I can definitely see that, yes. Most definitely.
I would actually say my least favorite fight on every difficulty, although Mythic's a little bit better, is Hellfire Assault. It is so boring.
Wait, that's a boss?
It is so boring. Like...
I wasn't aware that was a boss. I honestly thought that was just, you know, your first trash pack and they gave you a piñata.
It's funny, we're down to solo healing it on heroic. Mythic, you can't solo heal it. Mythic actually adds a little bit to it. There's extra mechanics. But it's still... Funny story, we actually wiped all night on it. On Mythic, our first night in there. And... that was extremely embarrassing when you consider we went in the next day, changing the strategy, and one-shot it.
Well, hey, it all goes to show. I mean, you know, I'm assuming you guys were overthinking it or something, or...
We were way overthinking it. We weren't cleaving. We were, we were, like, only focusing down the Berserkers and the mechs, and we were leaving the Felcasters up, and we were going to cleave it all down when the big guys show up, like 3 minutes in. That doesn't work.
That's a lot of it's a lot of lost time DPSing. It's a lot of, you know, missed damage potential there. I mean, you might as well just blow it up.
Yeah, you also have this issue where you have 6 Felcasters that transform at once.
Ugh.
And that doesn't matter how easy the fight is. That's an instant wipe.
Yeah, they hit decently hard when they meta.
So our strategy was we went in and we decided let's just kill everything. And one shot. Boom.
Hey, you know, sometimes it just works.
It went from being like an actual, like, stressful, how do we do this fight, to, wow, this is boring again.
Mm-hmm.
Fun times. And then, to top it off with, probably my favorite fight of this whole expansion is definitely Archimond.
That is a bold statement.
I think it's a pretty easy one to make.
You might be right.
I mean, there have been some good fights, but we'll get to that in a minute. For the most part, it's just a fun fight. At least for DPS, like, got the nice amount of stacking and spreading. It's got soaking because someone was stupid. It's got getting out of fire, which follows you, which was always, I swear to God, when I did Archimon back in high school, I had nightmares of that shit, man. It's fire that follows you.
Yeah, living fire is not something I'm too happy to see.
Yeah.
Especially whenever you're not a frost mage. So
That was a pretty bad joke.
it was. That's why I said it.
Yeah. But for a little bit I was doing Living Shadow duty, but we switched that over to Barrington because he is better than me. So
Well, at least you can admit your faults.
we go focusing shot on the fight. I don't know how you can go focusing shot on that fight. How can you stand still? And I guess how do you be any caster that's not a hunter? Is what I'm asking.
Well, the entire fight for Archimond, all I do is stand there and go, "Oh my God, please don't run out of cooldowns." And that's pretty much all I do. He hits like a monster truck. There's times in that fight where I go, "Why is this hitting so hard? Where did my guard go? Am I gonna die?"
Oh, actually, I guess the Deathbringers also, or Doomcallers, Deathcallers, whatever it's called. You know what I mean? The Doomguards.
Yeah, the guys that focus you. Yeah, the focused ads, the Doom Guard thingies.
If your DPS is too low, it's just they eat you alive.
Oh yeah, because it's stacking debuff, and I think it's a pretty sizable increase every time they hit you. And if that doesn't fall off for some reason, or if your off tank can't hold threat, which also happened to me last week, you end up with 6 stacks, and Archimond hits you, and then you get smacked with exactly 1 ability from anything, and you fall over dead.
We actually, I got a fun story for that too. Our first kill on Heroic, we accidentally used Battle Res as a DPS cooldown. Because what happened is the Deathcaller spawned and instantly killed the tank twice. And when that happens, the Deathcaller despawns.
Yes.
So we just Battle Res the tank and just kept going.
From what I understand, I think Method actually used that strategy on Mythic.
Do they?
It was Method or Paragon. It's one of the two. Used it on their Mythic Archimon kill.
I could actually see that, but I didn't think that phase was that important. I guess just needing to get through everything really quick.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. But I just remember one of them used a tank death to push that phase faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I could definitely see why it would work, because you're cutting out how much damage that doesn't need to happen there. So you don't have to change your focus. You can just have a lot more damage potential into your boss.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, I haven't seen it on. Well, I've seen it on Mythic, but I haven't seen it on Mythic.
Not firsthand.
I will say the Mythic fights so far have been both fun and a little disappointing, but I'm still in the first 4, so
I'm sure as you get through, I'm sure you'll find something that's really fun. Zul'Harak on Mythic looks absolutely fun, crazy, and just nutty.
That
so
fight. That fight in Iskar terrified me.
Iskar is no joke. Even with Iskar Assist or Exorcist raid tools or whatever, you can still mess it up. There's still little things that can happen, and any little mistake on either of those fights, because it's all personal accountability, your raid group can wipe.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the Mythic version also has extra stuff during the ad phase where you have to bounce the ball around even more. Or you, lose, half your raid.
Ooh,
instantly.
Well, that sounds challenging.
Yeah, because you have to, you put basically chains on people, and to get rid of them, you have to stand on top of the other person you're linked with. But if you stand on someone who has chains but they're not linked with you, you both take over 1 million damage, and everyone that you are connected with takes that same damage.
Oh.
That is terrifying.
That probably sounds like it's a lot harder to deal with than it actually is, but that is very intimidating.
Yeah. I know Gorfiend apparently the big first roadblock we're going to hit, though. So we'll see how that goes. I'm pretty sure we're going to kill Council this week, and then Kilrog should fall over shortly after. I will say, Cormorok was a lot better on Mythic than Heroic.
Well, that's good, because he's incredibly boring on Heroic.
Yeah, there's just a lot goes on. You have to constantly be on the move, constantly be on the right spot. And like the abilities come out like 2-3 times faster than heroic. He still dies extremely fast though. I think the whole fight for us was less than 5 minutes.
Wow, that's pretty quick. So,
Yeah.
what, one stampede?
I didn't even get a second one off, so yeah, one.
Wow, a one stampede fight.
Actually, let me double check that. Most fights actually have been one stampede fights for us.
Wow.
I mean, on heroic, it's because we're getting to the point where we're starting to overgear it, and we have really high DPS in general. But
I've definitely been noticing since you were nice enough to share some logs with me there so I could look at some things and try to help a couple of our DPS. I looked at that and I said, man, you guys have a warlock that just it absolutely scares me as Affliction on Reaver.
It's funny. He used to be really bad.
I remember that. He used to be pretty mediocre, but man, did he ever step his game up? Like, I looked at your other logs then and I said, oh my gosh. It's like, oh, my little buddy's grown up. Started to tear up and everything.
Our average Cormac kill is 4 minutes and 50 seconds. So,
wow.
It's a very quick fight. And it feels
is
like a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys have a couple people with the legendary rings, though, right?
I think as of today, everyone has it.
Well, that'll definitely help significantly. I couldn't believe the increase it did for the one or two that have it in my guild now.
Oh, man. Before we go any further, I just want to say, on Archimond, you know that very first Death Caller?
Mm-hmm.
On Heroic Archimond, he has, I think, 10 million life. He spawns, and then he is dead.
Oh my gosh!
The explosion does about 10 million damage with us right now.
Oh dear God, that's insanity.
It is great.
I mean...
It trivializes some of the heroic fights, too, because, like...
Wow.
Yeah. You burn through the fight so fast.
That is pretty crazy. I mean, I know with mine, like, I get... the tooltip says 25% versatility,
mm-hmm.
And it gives me an extra...
isn't it? It's 50% versatility now, isn't it?
When I use it, it puts me up to 51%. So it's 50% increase, 51% increased damage, and then 25.5 or so percent reduced damage. I mean, it's such a massive cooldown, and like I said, I don't have another tank that's been with us that long, really at all. So they don't have their ring.
Yeah.
So I basically have this extra personal cooldown. And when I pop it on the pool, if somebody else is pulling, I have to get him chain misdirected so I don't pull off of him. It just hits so incredibly hard.
So, some quick fun facts before we talk about the rest of Warlords of Draenor, which has been up and down, in my opinion. The ring, apparently the tank ring, lets you get healed to full during Tyrant Valari's Phase 2.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works, but apparently it does.
I will have to mess around with that this week when we kill her again.
And then, second of all, this is just a fun fact that I love. Mirror the Blade Master normal for hunters is better than every other trinket's mythic version.
The AoE, does that AoE just like scale that well, or
it only scales with gear. From normal to mythic, the clones do the same amount of damage.
Huh, so the
Based
only thing
on
that
your
actually
gear.
changes...
Yeah, it's the passive.
Wow.
So,
Huh.
it's actually, it is recommended by some guides that you don't use it on certain fights because it does too much damage. Which is hilarious. Mainly Mythic Gorefiend, because you'll accidentally kill people's spirits.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, then.
Yeah. So, with that, the rest of Warlords of Draenor, like I said, I feel like it's been up and down. Let's start from the beginning. Heimal. I didn't like Heimal. At all.
Why didn't you like Heimal?
I don't know. It felt boring. The fights didn't feel interesting. Other than, like, every once in a while. Bearder was an interesting fight, but god damn was it boring.
It was incredibly long. Even whenever we outgeared it, it seems like every time I did that fight, normal, heroic, the couple mythic attempts I had, I still haven't gotten it. It felt like I was in there for an eternity. Like I could have gone and, cooked dinner, gone to the grocery store, bought some beer, come home, done some laundry, come back, and we'd still be in phase 2.
Yeah,
just
and that's with
horrendously
decent
fight.
DPS. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, the kills that you were there for, and
Yeah,
everyone else. I mean, our DPS was not lacking at all. It
yeah,
just took forever.
yeah. Like I remember our first heroic kills, what, 16 minutes?
Oh, they're absurdly
Something
long.
crazy. I know the mythic version at least is interesting throughout the whole fight. It's like instead of just like boring, 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 boring. Oh my god, everything. It's a little more like eh, eh, eh. Oh my god, eh. The last phase of the fight's a joke, but I mean, I was going to give like a top 5 of this instance, but there's only 7 bosses. I will
Yes.
say Imperator is the best fight by far, despite being long and boring. And in my opinion. And Brackenspore would have been better if a certain key wielder would have let me use the flamethrower for once.
Oh, shots fired! Shots
No,
fired!
let's give it to the Boomkin. Ooh.
The Boomkin who DCs, yes.
And then what other fights were even? Targath was boring and easy. Tectis was boring. Eventually when we started poking Mythic, it was a little more interesting, but Twins was boring on every difficulty. I didn't even notice any difference on Mythic. Just things hurt more.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I was a Windwalker monk for most of that. And so I got the wonderful experience of, hey guys, I'm punching stuff really hard. Yay, I can carry the group. To, why is everyone doing more damage than me? To,
Why am
I have all
stuck
this
at
gear.
20K?
Yes. Like, my damage just kept staying the same. Get more gear, stays the same. Get more gear, stays the same. It was
Good
very
times.
weird.
That was
I
good
didn't
times.
care for that.
I cared for it. It was funny watching you go from equal to me to, wow, I don't even see you on the meter anymore.
Oh, look, guys, he's under the tank because he couldn't cleave.
Oh, that was great. Impurity was great. I take back everything I said. It was great.
Yeah, apparently that's not your favorite fight the whole expansion. The only fight I really liked in Heimal, I'm gonna be honest, I can't even remotely say I liked Imperator. It was just too boring.
You were also a monk at the time for most of that stuff.
Yes, I was. The only fight I enjoyed in that entire instance, and especially because I was a monk, was Twin Ogron, and
Oh, yeah.
that was horribly boring, just because, the strat that we used and most people used, you just had them, pull one of the guys out, whichever one did the whirlwind, I don't remember his name. I think Pole had the shield, and the other guy, whoever that one was, I forget.
I don't remember their names. All I know is DBM added a thing. If you whisper someone, they auto respond to you. You get the "Oi, they're fighting" thing that they say. It's hilarious.
Well, that's a good sound clip to use. Hopefully they never get rid of it.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoyed that fight just because, even on Mythic, there was just so much going on as a melee there, and you had to really pay attention to things, and it was actually fun. Plus I could cleave, so I was very happy.
Yeah, you're actually on top of the meters for once.
Oh yeah, it was glorious, is what it was.
I think by the time we got to Mythic, you'd been working on gearing up your rogue, so your gear actually started falling behind. And you were still
Yes.
really high on the meters, just like...
Yep. Yeah, I did that
Monks.
fight as combat, even though I really didn't have any gear, and I was still very high up just because, man, when you have 2 targets and they hadn't already buffed the other 2 specs, man, combat was great.
Yeah, I would have liked it a lot more if our tanks would have kept them closer together, because a Chimera shot, if you don't know, has an inch range for its cleave.
Oh,
If
so it's
that.
got to be right on top of it. That's nice.
And it's not consistent at all. Like, the Twin Ogrons, they can be, like, overlapping. Their models halfway through each other and it doesn't cleave. But then, like, Tyrants, every single thing I shoot cleaves. I don't get it.
Well, one of those mysteries in the universe, I suppose.
Yeah. So, it's funny, because I came back from, I played a little bit of Miss, and I quit in Firelands because I burned out. Hymo almost made me want to quit again. It was bad and boring, and I am so glad that Blackrock Foundry came out very quick.
You said Miss, and then you said Firelands, and
Well,
I got very confused.
Sorry, I meant I quit in Firelands because I got burned out, and then I came back for Miss.
There we go. Okay, that made more sense. I was literally sitting here scratching my head going, Did Arlaria just fall down the stairs? What happened there?
Nah. So, yeah, that's when I was a warrior. Remember that? Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, Smell Lady, yeah.
Yeah, I was a bad warrior. Never let me warrior again.
I will try to not let you do that.
I made a solemn vow never to go melee, and then Legion got announced.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, on to the much, much better than Heimel rated the expansion, Blackrock Foundry.
Oh, yes. The wonderful hole in the wall in a mountain that had a lot of fire. A lot of fire and a lot of orcs.
Oh, a lot of fire and orcs. Actually, holy shit, there was a lot of fire.
Yeah, there were also trains. Trains are cool.
I think every single fight involves fire.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Cormac didn't.
No, he didn't. You're right, he didn't.
He's the only fight that didn't have fire in it. That's kind of hilarious.
Even on Mythic, there's no fire?
No. There's just pain and sorrow and suffering. So,
Pain, sorrow, and sound waves. All right.
Yeah. So, oh man, I actually enjoyed Blackrock Foundry way more than I thought I would. Like, almost every fight in there was really good. At least at first. Eventually, maybe they wore thin, Hans and Franz. But for the most part, they were a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't have too many complaints about that raid at all. The only thing that really got me was the jump in difficulty when you got to Blast Furnace, and that was purely from a standpoint of that, if you weren't doing Mythic, it really felt like you could just zerg a lot of those fights and you'd be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which is alright, because, if you can't get through the base content and learn the basics of the fight, you're never going to get to Mythic anyway.
Yeah.
The most fun I had was walking into Blast Furnace and going, oh, we hit a roadblock. Wait, we hit a roadblock. We have something to learn.
If I remember, we also had a bit of a roadblock on Maidens. Not as bad. I think we put like 80-something pulls into Blast Furnace.
Yeah, Blast Furnace took us a while. It took us a long time on Heroic.
Maidens took us a little while, but that's because we had some members who like to hug bombs. So
yeah, there were definitely a couple that did that, and I think that was actually right around the time that, whenever we started doing Heroic and Blackrock there, we had just swapped a tank out.
Oh, that's right.
And so we had, we had our warrior learning everything to go with our paladin, and it was very interesting. It was a huge change. Speaking
of which, Brian, if you're out there, you did a great job picking up tanking for us. I gotta say.
Yeah, literally from out of nowhere, just, hey guys, I'm a warrior tank now. Like literally overnight, just shows up with a warrior. He was there as DPS for a little bit, and then suddenly, boom, he's a warrior tank with, apparently the magical powers of the auction house to gear out. So.
Oh my god, I can only, man, hurts my soul thinking how much he spends.
I'm pretty sure you could finance a small guild off of that, whatever he spent.
Yeah,
but
he was scared as shit, and he knew his shit too. So
yeah, he was on top of things.
And so let's start with you. What were your favorite fights? Actually, no, let's start with the worst, so we can end on a positive note. What are your worst fights of Blackrock Foundry?
Blackrock Foundry worst fight. I really didn't like Orgorger. I'm not a fan of Bomberman in anything. Mythic, it was a little better. I did get to try that fight. I didn't finish it, but, it didn't do much for me. You didn't have much control over the encounter, and one of the things you like as a tank is to have control over the encounter. Mm-hmm. And with Orgorger, he literally does whatever he wants, and realistically, just a very boring fight in general.
Yeah. I would definitely agree there. After we cleared, we were in the same guild, we were in I. After we, cleared that, we tried some Heroic, and eventually the guild kind of just fell apart. and I joined their retirement home, and they were already like neck deep in it. So I actually got to come in and do Org Orger after they'd already, beaten it. So I didn't get to see the actual progression. I will say, it is basically the same fight, but with less room for error and fire.
I would definitely agree with that. And there's definitely some fire in that fight, and it's a little intimidating, actually.
It's funny, my trial run, I went in there with them, it's Org Orger, whatever. I died to fire, and I was really embarrassed, because the first message I got the moment I died is, "Why did you die?" Oh, God.
I stood in the stupid. That's why I died.
That's pretty much what I said. And his reply was, you have deterrence. And it's just like, oh, man, shame.
Oh, the absolute pride you must have had at that moment in yourself.
Yeah, it was, it was better on Mythic. It was still kind of boring. But again, I didn't do the progression. I did a farm. Farm's always boring.
Yeah, most definitely. Getting that boss down is like the biggest high on earth.
Yeah.
And I say that because I don't do drugs. That's right, kids, don't do drugs. Stay in school.
Yeah.
Yeah! There's that
Good
positive
lessons
message.
from Lotuspetals.
Life lessons from Lotuspetals. Oh, God, now I have to make that podcast. That'll be great.
Oh, yeah. Did you, dislike any other fights, or?
Really just that one. The other fights, there was at least something to do. There was quite a bit going on in most of the other fights. I mean, Hans and Franz had its moments where I was just like, why is this a fight? But there was always something you could do to make that fight harder if you wanted to screw up mechanics. So, hey, range, go stand in melee. Let's see if the tanks can survive. Something that still kills those heroic pugs you see in the Looking for Group tool every day.
What group was it, or what fight did that?
Hans and Franz.
That's right. That's right.
The shadow, they take
Shattered vertebrae, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually 40% physical damage or something, which doesn't seem like all that much until you're taking a suplex.
Yeah.
Then it stings a lot.
I think my least favorite, besides Org Gorger, because we already touched on him, is actually Hans and Franz Mythic. It's an interesting fight, without a doubt, but it is infuriating as all fuck. Oh my god.
All those stampas.
It's like, once you get it down, I didn't have that much trouble on it. Again, I came in during, farm, but, my first time there, we one-shot it, and then I got, 2 30-slot bags for not fucking up. So, it was a thing, but it wasn't exactly interesting.
Yeah, definitely just left a lot to be desired.
Or not interesting, sorry. It wasn't exactly fun, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, I can definitely say that fight left a little to be desired, but Mythic definitely made it a lot more entertaining, because at the very least you got to watch your guildmates or new people just get crushed. It was pretty entertaining to watch.
Well, what about favorites?
Favorites?
There's usually, the bad, there's a lot of alright, and then there's favorites, so give me at least 2 favorites.
Okay. Operator. Hands down, my most favorite fight. Why was that my most favorite fight? Well, I think I can honestly say any fight with trains is hilariously fun.
Mm-hmm. Any fight, there's been exactly one.
Well, no, remember, there is a 5-man called Grimrail Depot. And Grimrail Depot is literally almost the entire time you're on a train.
Well, would you call any of the fights in there fun?
Who doesn't like to go? Yeah, I like to throw grenades at things.
Yeah, fair enough.
Definitely Operator Thogar. Granted, it was a fairly easy pattern to remember in normal and heroic because it was set.
Yeah.
I never did it Mythic, but the videos I saw and the responses I got from you when you were on it just make me laugh. It was so entertaining.
I think I actually cried to you.
It
was scary, man.
It's a very interesting fight. I very much enjoyed it. The ads, the little things, the splits, which some of us found out a little later than we should have, that you can just not split and just all go to one side. But, very, very fun fight just because of how chaotic it can get.
I'm actually gonna change my least favorite fight real quick to maidens.
To maidens, oh boy.
I changed my mind because take everything that's bad about Imperator,
Mm-hmm.
times it by 10, and that's maidens.
Huh.
Maidens was this super long fight that is completely brain dead for like the first 10 minutes, and then suddenly it's just full all out, like balls to the wall. And you wipe at 1%, and then you have to redo the whole thing.
Yeah, I definitely remember progressing on that on Heroic. Oh man. Oh guys, we got to phase 3, and we wiped on phase 3, do it again.
Yeah.
So 15 minutes later, we're on phase 3 again. We got another 10, 15 seconds into it. When we finally got it, not too bad. While you're learning it, just incredibly unforgiving.
Mythic
and very,
is,
very dull.
Mythic is just as bad because I actually progressed on this fight. This is the only fight I actually progressed with them on. Except I kind of a little progressed on Thogar because they were still it was still early for their kills, like early after. But oh my god, it's just I like the idea of going to the boats. That's cool. I hate the idea of standing around doing nothing but dodging bombs, which is what I did for the first boat. The second boat, I went up there and I shot things in the face, which was fun. But it's just like, there's so much that can mess up that just makes you restart a 10-minute fight. And if a fight's going to be 10 minutes like that, like, don't put everything on the back end. Please, Blizzard. Please.
Yeah, I would definitely
part,
prefer that some of the intensity show up at beginning, middle, and end, like a good story.
Like Archimonde. Archimonde's not a super long fight, but it's like Phase 1 is extremely hard. Phase 2 is kind of hard, and then Phase 3 goes back to being like hard, and it's an insane DPS check, but it doesn't feel bad because it's not boring.
Yeah, the flow of the fight, even though it takes a little bit, it's a good couple minute fight. But you don't sit there and you're not twiddling your thumbs waiting for a phase change like you are in some fights. Like, it can happen on Manaroth, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
It can happen, Blackhand. Oh, Blackhand, how I hated you. But,
Actually, talking about Blackhand, I was going to put him on one of my favorite fights.
well, I definitely didn't hate the fight.
Except for that last phase. Actually, I was the siege tank guider.
Mm-hmm.
Phase 2 was really boring for me, so...
I can imagine it would be. In my case, I did most of that as a rogue. I did the entirety of the raid, either as combat if it was AoE, or assassination if it was single target. And that fight as assassination was hilarious, because I was playing assassination before a lot of people even went to it, because it wasn't considered to be as good.
Yeah.
But, not gonna lie, cannot wrap my head around sub, cannot get it to work for me. I apparently don't plan too well when it comes to DPS cooldowns.
Yeah.
Tank, though, it speaks to me. I know how long my cooldowns are. I remember when things happen, so it works. But Blackhand for me was, phase 1, just balls to the wall as high as I can go, get to the top of the meter real fast. And then phase 2, it just kept going down.
Yeah.
And then phase 3, I start climbing again, because my one dot that I have, well, 2, poison's a dot, but I don't really count it as a dot because I don't have to maintain it. I don't have to actively try to, I should say. It just made it a lot of fun. When I was reprogressing on that fight as a brewmaster, with the guild I was in before I came to Twisted Legion, that was a very intimidating fight. You mess up the positioning, you're dead, you wipe the raid, you look like an idiot. But once we got to phase 3, that is the most fun I've had as a tank in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the aspect of, the entirety of the raid gets launched, I go, lol, you guys went flying over there, I'm gonna taunt this boss. And stand there, pop a guard, and, wait for everyone to get in range, and then run away again, and just keep going.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun as a tank, just because I was always getting knocked around, or flung this way, flung that way, and it was pretty cool. I definitely feel you, though, on that siege tank kiting. That definitely had to be boring.
Yeah, it wasn't the most interesting thing I've ever done. I mean, it wasn't the worst. I played it up in raid chat and made it seem like, I'd do anything to not do it, but it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, definitely worse things you could do.
I totally cut you off, by the way, earlier. What's your second favorite fight?
Oh, I'm allowed to have a second favorite fight? No way.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
All right, so Thogar was my favorite. My second favorite fight, the one right behind it, very, very close, I might add. Most definitely, has to be this fight. I actually really like Flamebinder.
Oh, really?
A lot of people don't like that fight. I played that fight as Assassination Rogue. I absolutely loved that fight as Assassination Rogue. I actually got to do damage that fight, and I got to shine on that fight.
I actually remember now because it's like I made this comment a few times because you would be like not on the meter for every fight, and then Flamebender, you're number one.
Yep.
You're just there.
that fight smoked. That fight just totally spoke to me. And the whole reason is because I had a total of 3 targets while the dogs were up, and I was that DPS that kind of bent the rules a little bit. I'd throw my ruptures on the dogs, and I'd pop a Crimson Tempest, and then I'd go back to killing the boss. Because if I didn't, things would die too quickly. So I had 3 ruptures up, a bleed going on 3 with the Crimson Tempest, and I'd just be standing there just, making the boss my bitch. It was wonderful. And, I had the meter to show for it. I got a pretty decent ranking on the fight. I think one of the attempts we had, actually, I think I was sitting like 97th or 98th percentile, which made me very, very happy because I hadn't seen that in a long time. And like I said, I'm not a very good DPS. I can perform pretty well, but I don't think that's my mindset, which is probably why I went back to tank. But that fight was definitely my second favorite just because I actually got to be there and be like, this is my time. Here we go. I did something great. Pay attention to me.
Yeah, I could see that. I'll get into this here in a moment, but it was one of those fights where, like, the difficulty spike wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
It was easier than Hans and Franz by, like, 30 miles. Like, without a doubt, it was... But, I mean, even Mythic wasn't that different. It had extra ads, but it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed coming in on, what was it, my monk, I think?
Mm-hmm.
When we wanted to do, what's his name? Aknor?
Yes.
And I would just sit in the corner and just spam my taunt button.
That is definitely what you did. I remember that, actually.
Yeah, we were having our healer druid, key wielder. He was also a raid leader. He tried it, and it turns out he, my healing didn't make up for his healing.
Yep.
My healing wasn't bad, but it didn't make up for his healing because he was carrying our healers hardcore. So he had to have me tank it. And that was when my tank was born.
Yes, when Dizzy rolled from... See, monk, roll, yeah. When Dizzy rolled over and, went from slinging mist to smashing kegs.
Yeah. It was fun. I mean, I still heal. And I still tank. I do both.
Yeah, I just don't heal.
Yeah, you're weird.
Here's the thing. I can heal. I could totally play Resto Shaman, but I don't want to level a Shaman. I don't want to level anything right now because all I can think about is that next X-Pack that's coming out eventually when they're done with it. So I want nothing to do with healing. I'm just I'm dedicated to being a tank now. That's the role I've locked in my guild. Unless something changes. If we somehow get 2 great tanks that come over, I will be more than happy to step back and reevaluate. But
yeah, so my second favorite fight, which is actually my first favorite fight, I only brought it up because, I brought up Blackhand because you brought up Blackhand.
Mm-hmm.
And I interrupted you earlier, so I didn't bring it up then. Mythic Thogar is so much fun. It's probably, if you go back and do it now, it might not have the same factor because DPS. Same reason, when I went and did Imperator, he kind of just melted.
Mm-hmm.
But just the timing, just how precise you have to be on some of those last trains. And the trains, like about half the trains are completely random. You have no clue where they're coming from.
Oh no.
And it's 3 rails. Like they come down 3 rails and you only have 1 free spot.
Oh.
And like there's a part where you have to deal with, I think it's 4 foresters at once.
Oh my.
I might be wrong on that. I know you can't be in the 2 side lanes, so you have to be in the middle ones. And there's 2 foresters coming in opposite directions. So what you have to do is you have to stand and wait for the forester in the lane you're in to get inches from you, so you can jump behind the other forester.
Oh my goodness.
It is the tightest timing I've ever seen on a raid boss. But it feels so good to kill him and learn that fight. And that was a fight that I have a serial issue, or a chronic issue, where every once in a while I do something extremely stupid.
I remember some of these.
Like, we'll begin a fight, everything's fine, and then I'll run into a mine. I don't know why. I won't see it, and I'll just run straight into it after like 30 wipes of avoiding it. Stogart showed that. Even on Heroic, if you remember, I had the thing where I swore that the train jumped the track for me.
Yes, I do remember those.
Stand there DPS and get hit by a train without moving. And apparently I was in the lane with it and I didn't notice. I don't know what I do, but... Now the thing is, in Mythic, I did that, but I actually was smart and I would deterrence burst.
Oh, right, because you have that ability to save you from fire.
I know. There's some really tight timings where you have to get to a certain spot and you have... I mean, I would always miss this timing every single time. So I would just deterrence and let the train ping-pong me into the right spot. It was great. And sometimes it would cause me to die because of fire debuffs, but that doesn't matter.
That is true.
Yeah. So with that, I think that covers those two. I will say, Blackrock Foundry was a really good raid. It was
most definitely
so much better than Highmall, even with the difficulty jumps, and there were some.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the best raids that we've had in a long time in terms of just overall quality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the one thing that anyone who's actually a serious raider can honestly say is that Warlords, albeit it's had its issues and its growing pains, has been one of the best expansions period for raiding in a long time.
Oh yeah.
You've had very engaging encounters. You've had a fairly sizable level of difficulty. You've had interesting fights. You've had just incredible DPS checks that we haven't seen in a while. And it just felt wonderful to actually have an actual challenge again. So my hat's definitely off to Blizzard on that. I'm very, very happy with the rating this expansion. The only thing I can complain about is I just wish there was more of it.
Yeah. Like, the biggest issues with the expansion were pretty much exclusively outside of rating. Rating has been great. Except for Highmall, but that's...
Well, it's the intro raid. I mean, we
Yeah.
can say the same thing from Pandaria about Mogushun Vaults. That was a
I
very...
never did that, so...
It was a very unengaging raid. Wasn't too much in there. I mean, the whole reason that anybody even wanted to go to that raid in general was because you had a shiny dragon mount, which, by the way, congrats on that.
Yeah, I
wish
stole
it
it
would've-
from you.
Yeah, that's right. You didn't steal it from me, and we agreed to free roll it, and you got it. So
I'm the one who said we should free roll it, and then I won it, so I'm pretty sure that still counts as stealing it.
Grand Theft Cloud Serpent.
Oh, yeah. But like I said, Highmall was bad, but Blackrock Foundry redeemed it, and then Hellfire Citadel is, I think it's safe to say personally, I think it's the best raid they've ever done. There are some raids that thematically were really cool, but the fights were Sunwell's a good example.
Oh yeah, amazing premise.
Sunwell's fights were good, but if you compare them to now, they weren't. Nostalgia-wise, they were amazing. Compare them to now, and Brutalist is literally just a DPS check with a cleave. That's pretty much all there is to it. I guess there's also the Ignite thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely look at that way because, I mean, as we progressed through, from vanilla to now, there's people that say, oh my god, 40-man raiding was so hard. And, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, getting 40 people together, that's a challenge in itself. If you look at just the general mechanics of the bosses, though, everything has evolved so much past what it used to be. Some of the bosses in Burning Crusade that were insanely hard, when you really think about it, there really weren't that many difficult mechanics. It was just, a hard number check or, just getting the mechanic done correctly that was hard.
Well, I mean, if you think, you rated Black Temple, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay,
yeah, I rated the entirety of Burning Crusade.
One of the hardest fights in that instance, besides Illidan himself and maybe Tarong Gorfiend. Tarong Gorfiend wasn't that hard. You just had people more stupid, you win. Is actually Reliquary of Souls. The reason that fight was hard, the sole reason, is because Phase 2 needed an interrupt rotation.
Yep.
Look at that now. That's the most basic. Fare. Yeah, that's the most basic thing. Or Blood Boil. Council is literally Mythic Council is literally Blood Boil with extra stuff. So, and Blood Boil is the easiest part of the fight. So.
Yes, most definitely. The one thing I can say about interrupt rotations is that at this point in Twisted Legion, we have it that it's active tank gets first. One of the melee, either our rogue or our DPS warrior, they get the second, and then the third is either a ranged or, if we have a second melee on that target, the second melee.
Yeah.
And we've never had an issue since we got to that point. It's just kind of ingrained in our memory now. We're trained that way. And it's just going to make every fight where there needs to be an interrupt rotation that much easier in the future.
I'd like to note this is the biggest tangent I've ever been on in a podcast.
I'd like to note that this is the first podcast I've ever been on.
Me too.
What? No way.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back on track somehow. I don't know how we got over there. The time between the raids, if they continue with that, I really liked it. I think Heimall ended a little too early, maybe. And that's with me hating Heimall. It kind of... Then again, we weren't in the best guild either, so it's...
No, definitely not. The thing I can say about the timing there, and like with Heimall moving, from Heimall to BRF to HFC, between, Heimall itself was so simplistic. After we cleared normal, I didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, there was no changes in Heroic. It was the same fights.
Yep, it was literally just the fight scaled up. So maybe a little less time there, but at the same time, we also weren't in a guild that actually had the potential to do Mythic right away.
Yeah.
We had to fight and tooth and claw our way there. So maybe if we had a situation where we're in now, it might be a little better, because as long as we're progressing on something, for the most part, you and I don't really care what we're doing as long as we're progressing.
Because farm's boring. That's what we learned in BRF. Farm is boring.
Most definitely. So realistically looking at it, the timeline they had, probably pretty much right on par with what they need. The mythic guilds that are always going to clear, the entirety of the tier.
Yeah, they don't count.
No, they're the, they're the hyper elite. For the most part, the people that are in these guilds that are, a ways back on the line there, that are, slightly behind those people with, cutting edge, we'll say.
Ahead of the curve, behind cutting edge.
Yes. So, those of us that are, just ahead of the curve, we really enjoy the progression, and as long as we can have the groups, I think we'll really enjoy everything else, too.
Yeah. I'm probably in the most, other than BC, I was in a really good guild in BC. I'm probably in the best guild I've ever been in, and we're 3 out of 13 Mythic right now. And we got 10 out of 13 or what. We got most of the fights in BRF. I almost feel like BRF didn't last that long, but at the same time, it also felt like it dragged on forever. I think it's because the guild we were in, because we were we did, what, like 2 months straight of just farm?
We really did. I think
It
really that
was
can just be
terrible.
attributed to the fact that we weren't really playing with an all that serious guild.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people who just kind of, just went MIA for as long as they wanted to. And, I mean, that's going to hold you back for one.
Oh, God, yeah.
And it's just going to deteriorate the experience for you in general. So, definitely from that, BRF was a really fun raid. And, I'm very glad they put out HFC when they did, because there was literally nothing to do besides raid at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But once we got into Hellfire, I mean, so much to do, so many bosses that are fun, so many bosses that have interesting mechanics. By interesting, I mean just something that isn't, tank it facing away from the raid, or, here's a debuff, you better tank swap.
Yeah.
As long as we have something else going on, most of us are going to be completely happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to be a relatively good tier. Looking at what we've had in Hellfire, it's an excellent tier, and I'm very happy with it.
Speaking of Hellfire and, going for different difficulties, I'm curious how you feel about how the 3 difficulties worked out, because I like it, but also, if anything, I think Heroic, like, if you go from normal to Heroic, one of my friends recently just finished normal. They killed normal Archimond. They got brick-walled by Heroic. The jump there is not that huge, but it's decently huge. It's I don't know how to explain it. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but it's not the easiest either.
It's enough of a step in difficulty that you're on a different difficulty.
Yeah.
The thing I saw with the normal to heroic transition for us was that we went from being severely overgeared to being just geared enough to do it. Which is why we're sitting at 7 of 13 instead of 12 of 13.
Yeah.
Because we don't have any mythic gear on us in that from previous tier.
Right.
Looking at the changes in damage you receive, certain aspects of heroic almost feel like they might be a little overtuned.
It's really fight specific though, because
it really is, yes. That could really just come from, in my case, it really could come down to the healer comp. It could come down to, the DPS doing their job to, be as defensive as they need to when things are happening. So I know a lot of people just won't use their personal defensives, because they assume, well, it's not dealing damage, why should I do that?
Yeah.
And that can be a huge thing, too. In your friend's guild going from normal to heroic, their healers might not be where they need to be for heroic, or it could just be that the DPS just isn't high enough yet.
But this specific raid did a better job, I think, going from normal to heroic. Because BRF, and Heimal too, the jump from normal to heroic was really small, and normal felt overtuned. Our guild had a lot of trouble on normal Imperator. And
Yes.
Ours being the guild we were in at the time, and we turned around, we were able to kill heroic Imperator without too much difference, despite the big DPS changes. That jump was terrible in my opinion. I think that's way overtuned. Same with Blackhand. Normal Blackhand is basically heroic Blackhand.
Yeah, it really didn't feel much different. The only thing I noticed really different on, normal to heroic Blackhand was literally that the boss's abilities seemed to hit harder, but nothing else.
Yeah.
Literally nothing else. And I'm guessing that could just be from the specific way they tune things at this point. Because everything that we got hit by was environmental, and that didn't seem to scale up much.
Yeah, the difference with Hellfire, though, is, going from heroic to mythic, especially. If you remember, I think this is also due to the fact of how they're doing the gear scaling. So they're scaling, Hellfire Assault is meant to be for, 720 or 715 or whatever? While Heroic Archimond is also scaled for that same item level.
Right, yeah, it's right around there.
So, Hellfire Assault is definitely easier than Heroic Archimond. But, the jump between... it's meant to be a jump. It's, the big thing. But Manaroth and Archimond, in terms of difficulty, at least normal and heroic mode, is huge. Um, like, you guys are going to have trouble when you get to Heroic Archimon in that last phase, because our guild is, I think we're averaging like 715 right now, and we barely have enough DPS to kill it without going into another banish phase, which extends the fight, makes things harder, you get more random chaos, which does a fuck ton of damage, by the way.
I'm well aware of
Yeah.
how much damage it does. It's really scary.
So, like, I'm just imagining, because we came into this with a lot of Mythic gear, and, I mean, the Mythic gear stopped overscaling us around Iskar, so... But even still, it's like... I mean, are they expecting people to spend a very long time on him if they're not, like, already really geared, or...
That's a good question. Because I know sitting there and looking at the way they have the gear scaling up, which I'm really not sure how I feel about how the gear scales up throughout the instance. I understand their idea behind it and their thought process, but it makes me question a lot about their design.
I will say that they actually did a good job with the difficulty with it, which a lot of people were afraid of, that the difficulty wouldn't like scale with it. There's some fights here and there, like Sorcithar is Sorcithar, but
Pinata.
for the most part, everything before Ishkar is easier than Iskar, except for Gorfiend. Or
Yes.
everything before Manaroth is easier than Manaroth, except for probably still Gorfiend. Gorfiend and Tyrant.
Gorfiend's a roadblock. He's definitely that hard check you need in an instance. He gates that. He's like your mini boss if you're playing Mega Man.
Yeah.
That's what he feels like, and that's definitely where he should be, because he is one of those characters that, he definitely should be that guy.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I totally cut you off a set. I just did it again. I meant to say I'm sorry I cut you off earlier when you were talking about the gear scaling up.
Yes.
I am the worst.
Well, I mean, hunters are the worst, so it's
yeah.
alright.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, looking at what they've done with the gear scaling and everything else, it's a big enough change between that it definitely flows, I think, a lot better this way than how it used to be. Because, you could just walk into whatever raid and the end boss didn't give you anything better than the first boss, which, in terms of difficulty, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It is also really good to note that since they did that, you can actually portal past the bosses that drop the lesser loot.
Yes.
Just now remember that, actually.
I really do like that. I very much like that idea.
I think starting next week, we're actually skipping the first 5 on Heroic. We're skipping past Gorfiend, so...
First 6.
Yeah, we're just skipping the first 6, and we're just going to continue on. We don't need to get gear from it.
Well, no, I mean, once you don't need gear from it, what's the point?
I know, and it's so nice you can do that. Has there ever been... I guess they did it with Blackhand, but who's going to skip everything to go to Blackhand?
I mean, when you only want that hammer for transmog, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm really cool with that idea, too, because, I mean, eventually in the guild, you just want to go work on that last boss. I mean, when you're working on, whenever you get to the point where you're working on, say, Mythic Archimon or something, wishful thinking in my case.
Yeah.
But, when you're working on that fight, you don't want to do the other stuff. Maybe you need to kill Manaroth to get, everybody this or that, or, get these other trinkets you need, maybe off one boss. Having things optional is definitely great, because a lot of us, like in my case, my guild only raids a total of 12 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Our raids are from 7:30 to 10:30 Central Time. So there's not a lot of time there, and sometimes we just much rather focus on one. Like, I think right now we're actually keeping our Archimon lockout in normal.
Yeah.
Purely to get more attempts in on him, because we haven't killed him yet. We've gotten to 7% about 1.5 million times.
Oh, if you guys need, I can skip you guys all the way up to Manaroth.
We have that, actually.
Oh, okay.
We do have that, thankfully, but man, absolutely just
Yeah, because I know
frustrating at 7%.
eventually we're going to be still needing Archimon trinkets. So it's going to be nice when we can just go, oh, we're just going to kill Manaroth and Archimon and then go back to Mythic.
Yep.
Boom, farm done.
That will be pretty sweet.
So it's, yeah, like, I do like that. That's one really good thing about having the That's different levels of gear. The
Mm-hmm.
downside, of course, is we have mages with, was it 720? 720 weapons, and I only have a 715, and I am pretty salty about that.
That is something that I really think they'll need to address.
Oh, they don't have to anymore, remember? There's no weapons in the next expansion.
That's true, there aren't. It's probably a good thing.
But, yeah, so, that being said, the mythic versions of these fights so far, I think I brought it up a little bit earlier. Mythic Hellfire is a lot funner. It's not that much harder unless you don't cleave. Then again, I mean, we have a lot of DPS. We have a lot of cleave, especially. We have 2 rogues.
Yeah.
We have 2 rogues and 2 Death Knights. So, we have cleave.
That is definitely something you have.
Reaver gave us trouble because we're bad. Like, I don't know how to explain it other than, not that we're bad. Actually, let me change this. We had trouble because we're too good. Our DPS are the kind of DPS who want to, like, just barely scrape by. Like, just get out of the way, out of range. And her barrage, first of all, it does like 1,000,000 damage.
Right.
Second of all, it's bigger than it should be. And it hits you way outside of it, so... It does have a range, though, fun fact. But it's just... Yeah, we had issues because of that. And then, Cormac, whatever, rock guy,
Rockman.
he was definitely a harder fight from Heroic. Like, the jump up there is extremely obvious, but he wasn't that much harder than... Like, comparing him to Archimonde, he's basically same difficulty level of Archimonde, I'd say. Easier than Archimonde. Because he dies so fast. Other than that, I think everything is so far looking pretty good in the difficulty scale. These fights are easy, but they're kind of meant to be with the first wing.
Oh yeah, definitely they are.
So, yeah, that is about all I have to say.
Well, I have nothing to disagree with there, so...
We're running on like 1 hour and 20 minutes. You got anything else you want to bring up, or?
Wow, 1 hour 20. Huh,
Yeah.
you really can ramble on forever.
I know, we're good at rambling.
Definitely. Honestly, not really. I mean, I think we basically covered everything there is to cover there.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the fact that Twisted Legion is now openly recruiting anything we can possibly find for the next expansion.
I can hear you typing out that recruitment message.
Yeah, I know. But, other than that, I mean, I definitely got out everything that I've enjoyed so far. And, I mean, I've definitely enjoyed this expansion. I've definitely enjoyed, pretty much everything about this expansion with regards to the rating, so...
Yep. So I think next time we'll probably talk about Legion. Hopefully we'll have stuff to talk about. If not, we can just like give updates on what we're currently working on and bore any one person who might be listening. So.
Yeah, I know, right? There's going to be one person listening, and probably me, checking to see if I sound ridiculous or not.
Actually, there'll probably be one other person, because I will probably be doing it when I edit this.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So, yeah, that was almost ahead of the curve. I hope you all enjoyed, and bye.
Yep, we'll see you next time. 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 Yep, we'll see you next time.